Wait, I
Every
started.
time you say you want to know me, I
Oh
get
my
anxious.
God. Oh my God. I can't do this interview because it just reminds me of what I lost.
That's what I think of too. Well, I think about how that song in my house, and then I
Hmm.
think, wow,
I think of when liked me.
I get anxious.
I
I, Greg Mendez, hereby request Josh Ovalle for collaboration with the Internet is Dead podcast. Please, Josh, be a guest on the podcast. We miss you.
I just feel like every time we have someone on, we ask them about NYC.
Oh, we're still thinking about moving to New York. I was wondering if you could tell us any information. Oh, hey.
Hi.
How are you?
Hi, I'm Greg.
Hey,
Hi.
nice to meet you. I'm
Nice
Brittany.
to meet you. I'm Samira.
Nice to meet you both.
I
Nice
think
to...
we actually met like briefly at a show. I was like taking pictures of people's faces and putting it on like a urinal because I used like the men's bathroom. And I was like,
Oh,
"Can I
yeah,
get a
yeah.
pic of your face?"
I
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
do.
was that girl.
Cool story.
But yeah, thanks for doing this today. We're excited.
No,
Yeah.
thanks for having me on it.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Internet is Dead podcast. Today we're joined by Greg Mendez. Just to like start off, would you want to talk a little bit about like your background before getting into music? Because we're always just like curious about how people started the thing that they're doing, and also just like what led up to it. Because I know you've been doing music for a while with like demos dating back to 2006.
Could I actually refill this really quick?
Yeah, go for
Yeah.
it, dude.
Like live or anything? Is it in my stomach?
No,
No, no, you're fine. Imagine
dude,
if
that'd
this
be
was
cool.
live. That'd be crazy.
Like at Saturday Night Live.
Yeah,
True.
the early bird.
Sorry.
How did I get into music? I just liked it a lot.
Yeah,
You know,
cool.
that's like the short. That's the short
That's how
answer.
it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just probably a bit of like probably a little bit of like immaturity, to be
Mm.
honest, where like other people were like doing things that would set them up to have like a better life, and I was not doing that.
That's funny. Well, how old are you now?
I'm 36 now, just turned
Okay.
36.
So, how old were you when you like started like pursuing music?
I mean, I was making it from like my teenage years, like late teens, and then I pursuing is a hard word for it because if it means like, spending all my time making these songs and like really trying to like do my best with that and like making if it means like the art of it, then it would be like that whole time. But
Mm.
Mhm.
with like some like, periods of time where my life got so intense that I didn't really have very much energy to put towards it, but it was always like something that was on my mind, something that it was always there. But as far as like if it's pursuing as like the career version of it or whatever, then that's pretty recent. I think probably within the past like um, few years, really. Other than like just because I didn't understand that you could even that I could even do that, like other than like
Yeah.
Yeah.
playing little shows and stuff like that. Like there was really I didn't really have any like view. I mean, I had some friends who were like more successful with this stuff, but it just kind of seemed like, and they kind of also seemed like, oh, I don't know, it's like just kind of like happened.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I feel like that's like weirdly the vibe that everyone in music kind of has with it until it's like at a certain level, I guess.
there's definitely
Yeah.
a huge divide between like the uh, industry and like DIY or whatever, where it's just like I don't know. It feels like there's really a veil.
I feel like I think about a lot like how the industry changed with like the internet and with like people like being more aware of each other and just aware of like all this different art out there. Like, do you think that that plays a lot into it?
I don't know. I think the internet makes it like more and less accessible in a way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
if that makes sense. I don't, because it makes us feel like, it makes you feel like you have more information, but actually a lot of it is bad information. And I think that's just how, that's not even like just music. I think that's just where the internet's at. Yeah, I feel like I found a lot of things that weren't true or that were misleading on the internet. And like, there's a lot of people who don't know what they're talking about.
I well, when you like first started, were you like did you post your music online at all or like
I did like I started with like MySpace was the thing. Like it was even
Uh,
before Bandcamp. Uh,
hmm
but I really like, I would post it on there and then like share it on Facebook or whatever, or just tell my friends about it.
mm.
yeah.
And it definitely reached some people that I didn't know, but not too many.
How do you feel like that experience of posting it on MySpace and stuff back then and Facebook, like how do you feel like that shifted to how that works now? Like, do you feel like there's that big of a difference or it just like feels different because of how the internet has evolved?
I think it feels a little bit different in that, well, now like all that has basically become like monetized with like,
Mm.
hmm
like the streaming services are kind of just like took, like I feel like MySpace was kind of the first one of those in a weird way, where it was just like, anybody can put their music up on this and then other people can listen to it like in, but like the streaming services have, monetized that. So now you have to go through a distributor and
Mm.
pay, and then they make money off of it. So it's become different like that. And then there's like still Bandcamp, but nobody really like uses it as a listening service because it isn't very good for that. Now also I feel like there's a lot more I feel like there was a lot less pressure for like posting and stuff because nobody thought. Now I feel like there's this like outsized perception of like what posting on Instagram or like, TikTok or whatever will do for you, where it's like now everybody's kind of putting all their eggs in that basket, whereas
Mm.
before it was just like, you could just tell people about it. And then, you know does that, am I like talking in circles?
No, that makes
No, that
sense.
makes sense. Yeah, especially with like the thing about people putting kind of all their eggs in that one basket of like, especially like TikTok, because I feel like that's where it's the most prevalent, where musicians will like just post consistently, like over and over again, like snippets of their songs, and like there's all these different avenues where they could like blow up, like through it becoming like a sound or an audio or something. And I feel like they're just like trying like all those different avenues to make it work.
Yeah,
Mm.
totally. And I don't know if it works. Like, I mean, I don't do that, so I don't. Maybe I'm not the best judge, but
Mm.
hmm
I I don't know. Does anybody know if it works? I don't. I
I
don't
mean,
think they
I
do.
think it works for like some people. I think it's an interesting thing of like because there's this accessibility for anyone to do it, it like adds this like sort of pressure to do it, obviously. I don't know. I have a feeling that a lot of it is like, oh, if this thing was gonna blow up, it's gonna blow up on social media like as well. But it's
hmm
like not really, I don't know. Like I feel like the new word of mouth is social media a little bit because even people who I think like get somewhere from word of mouth end up with a social media presence in a way as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think like other people sharing stuff on like TikTok and Instagram or whatever and Twitter is definitely like the new word of mouth, and I
Mm,
think that
Yeah.
does more. Like, I think if you can do that, if you can, and I don't even know if you can as an artist can make that happen. I think you can. I think making art that people want to share is like the only thing that you have control over it, because to me that's like a lot more meaningful. And people, I think, when people see other people sharing like a song or something, they just take it holds more weight than if the artist is like posting clips.
mm,
Yeah. Well,
no,
it's like
definitely.
this weird like skill set also that's like a new skill set of like being good at social media almost, and like knowing how to like post the right things and like knowing how to brand yourself, which is a really weird thing.
Yeah, it's totally a separate thing. It also makes me feel like a lot of it's like a lot of the work that I think originally was like for record labels or like like the
Mhm.
industry work is now like kind of just like offloaded onto the artists. Like, oh well, you have to
Yeah.
promote. Like that used to not be the artist's job, like the promotion and like engaging with the public, and now it kind of is.
No, I think that's also interesting with like DIY music, just because I think a lot of that is just like such an in-person thing because a lot of like DIY bands don't even have music on streaming. And I know that you started out like very DIY. And I'm kind of interested in hearing like where you feel like it stopped being DIY and you felt more like you were pursuing like music. Like what even like that shift felt like.
It honestly kind of just happened. Like I think it was definitely like even the self-titled record, I made it myself. I paid for it myself. I went into credit card debt myself.
Mhm.
Whoa.
Not like a lot, but
Yeah.
Mm.
enough that I didn't pay it off till recently. And it was just a tape label that put it out. So that kind of like, I guess the switch happened when people started like paying it, like it kind of accidentally got on people's radar, and then which I don't think I did, and then after that, like the industry kind of came to me
Mm.
away. So I guess that was the shift was kind of like not like I just kind of went with that. I was like, I I really didn't have anything else going for me. So I just kind of was like, okay, this is where we're going, I guess. So yeah, it felt pretty I just let myself get swept up in this thing that was happening really.
Like just the idea that you went into like credit card debt at the time to put it out and then it ended up doing so well. That's like really cool. Like I just think that's like a really awesome thing when like someone has something they feel really passionate about and they're like, "No, I believe in this thing. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put it out like whatever like it takes." And then it ends up like really just like I don't know, like the results show even though like the results aren't really what matters. I think that's just like a really cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think that it would pay off its credit card debt, but it did.
Mhm.
But I didn't, it was a stupid financial decision at the time,
Yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
That's funny.
like,
Do you feel like your creative process has changed since making music with your partner?
um, yeah, I think I've definitely gotten more like sure of myself over the years, and just and not even like sure of myself in terms of like that if I do something it's good, but I'm more like sure of myself as an editor where I'm like, I'll put things down or come up with things, and I'm pretty good now at like I used to not trust my gut as much where I'd be like, I don't know if I like this, I think me blah, 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 like this whole like thing, and now I'm just like I really am just like I trust the feeling that I have where I'm like this is
Mhm.
like I'm gonna keep going with this, or like this is not it. And I feel like more like I feel more like an editor than a writer a lot of times. Like I'll just have all these things like coming through me, and I'm just like, this is good, this is not, this is good, and I feel like I trust my instinct with that more. And I feel like playing with V has made me a lot more like confident and comfortable on stage, which took
Mhm.
really a long time for me because I mean that's also a totally different skill than like writing songs or recording them or like playing. Um, and playing with V kind of just made me a lot more comfortable with that, and a lot more comfortable just like doing what I do on stage, which is pretty much like I figured out I just have to like sit there and like play it as if as I do if I'm just at home.
Yeah. That's so interesting about live performing because I feel like that is like a can of worms that is like very hard to decipher out. Like I like me and Samira have talked about this a lot because we'll read at like open mics and like do that sort
Mhm.
of stuff. And I feel like there's like no way or it's just like a very hard thing to get to a point of being normal while you're like doing something that's literally like performative. It's really weird to watch from the outside of seeing somebody do something and seem like they do it without any anxiety. And it's just like an insane thing to be able to like, I don't know, like trick your brain into like doing that and then like trying to take away the perception of it.
Yeah, it's definitely strange, like mental gymnastics. And I definitely still get nervous. Like I have to pick like a good first song, and
Hmm.
sometimes I mess up with that, and I pick a song that's like too new or too like difficult or something, and then I don't like the first song. Like I'm generally pretty shaky on
Mm-hmm.
first one or two, and then and then it's like getting into that, and I feel like my like state I feel like it starts to be good when I like leave watching myself in this room and I start to
Hmm.
like be in the songs more and like, you know, I feel like the more I'm thinking about it, the worse it is.
You talk about this like with recording like the podcast too, of how when you watch it like after you're like looking at it and it like just feels way less intense than it did in the moment. And I feel
Hmm.
like when you have that experience, like when you're performing, where you just get like outside of your body almost, and it like feels like you're like retroactively like looking back on this moment and like looking back at yourself performing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. It's a weird it's a weird I feel like it's an unnatural thing to learn. At least for me, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
some people are more inclined to it, but I really wasn't. So it has been a learning curve.
Yeah.
Do you feel like part of that process to like become more comfortable was like desensitizing yourself?
I don't know. I think it was just doing it a lot and like,
Mm.
getting all kinds of reactions. And I also used to busk uh like years ago, like, 10, 15 years ago, like as like for money, like as a
Mm-hmm.
job. And I think that really was kind of like a crash course because you can do that like on the you can if you can do that and like nobody fucking cares. I mean, some people do, but the vast majority of people, you're just like playing to people who are walking by. They're going to work. They're shopping. They don't care about music. They certainly don't care about what you're doing. And I feel like that kind of like unlocked something where it was like it doesn't matter if they don't care. Like I'm just,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
and I think after that it made playing shows to people who are like there because they were interested in it. It made it kind of easy.
Did
Yeah.
you busk like in like Philly while you were living here, or like I know you also like lived in New York?
Both. I started. I guess I started doing it here, and then when I moved to New York, I did it for a time too. Yeah, it was just to make money. I didn't really enjoy doing it that much for the most part. It was pretty
Mm.
pretty intense. Yeah, I would just pick somewhere. Like here,
Yeah.
I used to do it like in front of the Doc Martin store a lot, which was,
Uh,
and then like I
Oh
ended
my
up being
God.
friends with the people who worked there, and they gave me boots one time,
aw,
Oh,
that's so
that's
sweet.
sweet.
and then I would do like the Rittenhouse Farmers Market on
Oh
Mm.
yeah.
Saturdays. I mean, it was cool. Like I met a lot of nice people. I was just talking about this the other day. New York really feels like a world stage,
Mm.
and Philly does not. And not that that's better or worse, but like Philly is small compared to New York, so that. And as far as like the DIY community, I feel like the influence that has is that it's tighter. Like I think in New York,
Mm.
there's just like more of those,
Yeah.
but they're maybe harder to find.
With New York, do you feel like while you were living there, I'm also curious, like, did you meet your partner in New York?
Yeah,
Okay. Like I was just gonna ask, like, if you felt like you like with like thinking of it more as like a world stage, do you feel like you were like not to be like corny, but like on that stage, like do you feel like you like found like your way in New York? Because I know that can be really hard in such like a huge place.
yeah. I mean, not really, honestly. But I don't think I was really trying to either. I think maybe stage was the wrong word. Like I was trying to describe more like you go to like a street corner and like fucking if I walk out
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the avenue on West Philly in West Philly, like I'm seeing the same people. all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like a set. You go to New York and you're just like, it's like the world is filtering through there. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Whereas Philly
Hmm.
feels more like its own, like Philly's like a bubble almost, you know, it's not it's not the wide world in the same way that New York City is. And I don't think one is better than the other. It's just like, what are you more comfortable in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you saying that Philly feels more like a set, I think is really interesting. After living here for like a couple years, it can feel like a little bit trapping because I also like was reading the interview you did for I think it was like I forget what I think it was like Bandcamp. Like you were stuck in the thought that the place was the problem, and
Yeah, yeah.
I was super interested in that because I feel like at our age right now, I feel like we're having that a lot, especially with like being like we just graduated college like a year ago, and I feel like that's like such an interesting experience of just like starting to be like, okay, maybe I need to like get out of here. And maybe that's like what's like wrong with my life. And I was kind of curious more about that and how that thought has like changed now, like to reflect on.
I mean, I think if you feel like that, you probably got to try it. But I don't know what the result will be.
Yeah.
Yeah. uh, it didn't really, you know, there's that. It didn't really. I guess what it made me realize is that, like, you know, you change all the other things in your life, and you know, the last thing you want to realize is that you are the thing that's in your way, and so I feel like I had to try and do all these other things before coming to the hard realization that those weren't the things that were causing me trouble.
Mm.
And that it was, you know.
Well, what did you find at the time? Like, if you don't mind talking about it, like what, at least in the interview, it seemed like that was also the same time that you were like getting sober and stuff. So I don't know if that was like kind of what you're referring to or if it was other stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's like wrapped up in a lot of other stuff too, you know, like I feel like it was definitely addiction stuff, and like active addiction then like leads you to cultivate like manipulative tendencies and like all these things that really serve you when you, or that not even that serve you, that like are survival skills when you are like in that place.
Mm.
And then when you, like, those things don't just go away, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If that's been your life for a long time, like any, all like behavior is, you know, reinforced the more you think and act a certain way. So then it's like after that you have to figure out those things about yourself and like what, you know, how you can be better.
Where like along the way did you like meet your partner and how do you feel that like changed your life? Because I know you make a lot of music with your partner, but I'm curious about just like the impact that had on your life.
It changed it a lot. We were in New York, and it was like 2015 or 16 that we met, but we were just friends for a couple years before. I think I think like V makes me want to like be better. It feels like there's like somebody that I care about like more than myself. I just always really like admired like what V does, and like her, I think she has like such a special talent for music and like art, and um I was just always drawn to it, so it feels like it always felt good to be able to do things together.
To transition so that we have time to talk about your new EP. So I know you broke your wrist and then you wrote an EP. Do you want to talk about that?
uh
Because I know you have First Time Alone coming out, so I'm just curious what like led up to the release and like I was reading the bio about it about you like having to be like stuck and like I don't know handcuffed by your injury. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I had a wrist surgery, and I just couldn't do anything with my right hand for like 4 months. So my little project was to try and get better at keyboard by playing it with only my left hand. And I wrote a couple songs, and I started. I mean, I originally, like, you know, I didn't. wasn't trying to make an EP or anything.
Hmm.
But I just started, recording them on my 4 track, and then like the other 2 songs, like the second 2 songs were like after I started being able to play guitar again, and I was just kind of like not demoing, I won't say, because I don't usually do that, because then like this is what happens. I ended up releasing the demos because I like them. Um, so I just was like recording them and sending them to my friends, and people were like really excited about them. So then I decided I was going to put them out, and but it was, it was like a thing that was happening before all the like label stuff was solidified, and it kind of just came together by accident, I guess is what I'm
Hmm.
saying.
Was it like weird trying to like play keyboard with like only one hand and also like not being able to play guitar for a while? Do you feel like that kind of changed the way that you valued making music or like just like shifted your mindset toward it?
I think so. I mean, I think that those two, like the first 2 songs on the EP, I think would not exist if I had my full use of my 2 hands. And I think that's cool. And it
Hmm.
definitely was like I'm not a keyboard player, like
Mhm.
I would write those parts for the first 2, but I'd be like playing them with 2 hands, like baby style, like, like 2 notes per, like it was, so it was definitely a thing that I had to like, uh, practice to like get, and the chords aren't even hard. They're not hard, but for me, like even just being able to play them like fluently with one hand was like something that I had to work towards.
Do you feel like it's like not being able to like be capable? Do you think that kind of like did something to your brain for a little bit? Obviously, it's like not that big of a deal. Like it's an injury. It's not like as bad as like thing like debilitating or like anything, but I feel like that just like makes you think about things, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. And it was, I mean, it was like it was temporary, which I think like had a, a bearing on how I felt, but it was intense. Like I couldn't like, I
Mhm.
couldn't do dishes and stuff. Like I couldn't,
Mm.
like there were a lot of like tasks, everyday tasks that became like a lot harder. And then like, I couldn't do the thing that made me feel like I had a place in the world either. Or I mean, I figured it out with the keyboard stuff, but it felt, I think it did. It was like it was an intense time in terms of like, uh, I mean, it was very much like, if I think about it, that is a period of time. It was different
Mhm.
than well before, like I was in pain for like a year, and that was its own time, but the recovery from surgery period was definitely like a thing.
That's cool though that you got to make something that you like a lot from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, I guess.
Well, it's just like nice because I think a lot, like I feel like the thing I'm always trying to do with like for me it's like writing, but I feel like I'm always just trying to like when something feels awful, I'm like, okay, let me try and recenter like what this experience is. So I think that even just making something that you can be happy about is a really cool way to work through that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Yeah, I didn't like think about it like that, but I guess that is the idea. I think that's, maybe why a lot of people make art in general. It's like just to turn something into something, right?
To like gaslight themselves and like
Yeah.
the tracks on like this EP, I know you like had said are less refined as self-titled and that you had said that it's the inverse of that album. So I'd love to hear like what makes it feel that way to you and also just like what's different versus like what you had been experiencing when you wrote self-titled versus now.
um, I think there are a lot like the process was just like really different in terms of like, I mean, I was pretty like recording the self-titled was pretty like, uh off the cuff in a way, but then it was very like the actual like tracks, as far as like recording the acoustic guitars and vocals, like I really just like played the songs and then did it again, and then, but as far as like the whole like constructing arrangements and then like mixing and stuff was all like very tedious and like very perfectionist, and I mean, it still sounds like it doesn't sound like super hi-fi or anything because of what we started with, but it was like definitely a process of like, okay, here's this thing that I made at home, and then like me being like, I want to make this like sound as good as it can, you know.
Mm.
And then this one was really just like I really didn't want to do that. Um, so this one just felt like the whole thing was just more very like uh just like get it away from me almost. And it feels like it's less like it's more lo-fi, it's more there's less happening, you know, everything is just a live take except like there's bass and harmony overdubs on the song alone, but everything else is just, you know, just a couple mics in a room. And it
Bug
just felt kind of good to just like make something that was uh low stakes and like low stress like that.
Bug wanted to know too.
Dude, she did want to know. She's like meowing.
Ours is trying to break into the closet right now.
Aw.
Aw.
Do you feel like you took away anything unique that you didn't take away before from making music along like the process of this EP?
Yeah, totally. And I think probably the next like album that I make will probably be a combination of the two approaches because there's things that I think that are good about both of them. But yeah, mainly I feel like, you know, and I always kind of thought this, but I feel like all that stuff kind of doesn't matter in a way. Like
Mhm.
all the perfectionism, you know. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that I love that really isn't perfect. And if I think that I didn't trust myself as much with that, but it's kind of like if there can't be some mistakes and imperfections, if what you're making can't like hold up past that, then you got bigger problems than the mistakes and imperfections.
Mm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you ever feel weird, like, I don't know, like having to like describe your own music? Because I feel like that's what I think about a lot when I talk about music with people. It's just the act of putting things with labels and stuff is such like just like an odd thing because it's like, oh, well, you're just making something you like.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel weird. Especially at first. I think I find it easier to just describe what I was doing or feeling, and
Mm.
so I
Hmm.
do that, and then I feel like that usually paints some kind of picture.
Yeah, no,
And
that makes sense. So much for like everything you said. It was like very interesting and like cool to hear about your life and what led up because I think like going at something for such a long time and it suddenly just like gaining like all this like attention is like a really weird thing.
Hmm.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
And I
it's
like,
really cool to hear about, like from the
yeah.
outside and like, yeah, it's just like a cool, because I feel like when you're like in it, it like is like, oh, you're just like in it. This is like your life, but it's like a cool thing to hear about from the outside, I feel like.
Mm.
Yeah. It's weird to be in it. Yeah, it's weird, I think, on all fronts.
Yeah.
In terms of like my daily, you know, tasks and stuff, it's just way different. I'm trying not to. I mean, I guess I'm just. It's what I love to do and what I do, but now it's also my job, and that I guess is
Mm.
the difference. And I'm still trying to figure out like what that means and how to do that well, and how to
Yeah.
like preserve the things I that were working before while also like making it work as a job. It's just like a weird like I'm definitely not an expert on where I'm at right now. It's very new to me, like I'm, you know, cuz before I was like working a construction job or whatever, and then I would come home and work on music, and it would be like a very specific time. Now it's like, you know, now I wake up and I'm doing a podcast with you guys. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, I kind of have to make my own time like that more and kind of figure out what's important to me, and that it's new. I,
Yeah.
I might have gotten off track, but
No.
No. Well, that's weird to like have something at first kind of be more of an escape, especially like the act of like I think working a job that you maybe like don't like and then you're escaping through this like form of art is a lot different than when you like are like, wait, I can just do this now.
Yeah, and there's things that I don't like about that too,
Hmm.
and like, some of the things like the reality is different than the idea that I had about, or at least so far. I
Mm.
feel like I'm pretty green, but it's interesting.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
taking the time to talk with us today. It was really fun.
Thank you.
No, thanks for having me. I'm really glad that we could do this.
It's funny because like a year ago from now, we were talking about this before you got on the podcast or like before you joined the call, like because our friend covered your song in my living room like last year in like December, and it was like really sweet. And it's like just weird because that's like not a year ago, but almost a year ago.
Almost
So
a year
then like
ago.
reflecting for just like ourselves because it's cool because like it's like just your song that did that, and like a
Yeah.
thing that we can like tie to you as an artist, but it's also like just like it's cool that like music gets intertwined in your life in that way, but then also just like it's funny to reflect for us of being like, oh wow, so like now we're just like talking about this music and like this was the song in my living room last year and the guy who sang it liked Samira like and it was just
It
like I don't know, it's just funny because I think it's
How did that go?
it didn't go.
it
He
didn't
asked her to go to
go.
the ice room.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
You need to like stop. But it is like, well, it's just like crazy
So we
how
stayed
like,
at a hotel and there was an
oh my
ice room. Okay,
God.
sorry.
Yes, no, tell the internet. Um,
Sorry, what can I say? I just
but that's like what I like tie, like I feel like I tie a lot of our friend group to that, like to your song, like because of that, I feel like. And that's like the memory that I have associated with it.
That's really interesting. That's something that I never would guess. So it's cool.
Yeah.
that was just like such like a song of that like era too. And it was also really sweet when he covered it because like everyone in
It
the
was
room knew
so
the
sweet.
song.
It's like sometimes I regret not going to the ice room and it's like the song like plays in my head like on a loop.
Maybe we
Anyway.
can go back to the ice room at some point.
True.
Anyway, so before you get off, we just have like one more thing. We have all of our guests recite a thing because we talk about internet culture a lot on the podcast. So could I just send this thing in chat for you? Basically, we're trying to get this guy on who's like an internet guy. So we just have all our guests request him.
I, Greg Mendez, hereby request Josh Ovalle for collaboration with the Internet is Dead podcast. Please, Josh, be a guest on the podcast. We miss you.
Thanks,
Who is
dude.
that?
He's
He's
like a Vine guy.